And we are live, and good morning, everybody. It's Tuesday, February 16th. This morning, we're going to be talking with Kathy Jameson, who's the manager of the solid waste residues for farms, I believe, at DEC. And the committee, I think you know us all, Kathy. With the exception of one new member, Senator.
Well, I worked with Kathy quite a bit in my old committee, so
So we're
I'm
all
in a new seat, but same person.
So I guess we're all familiar with each other, and the reason we're having you in, Kathy, is the agricultural agency added some new pieces into our what we call the chicken bill. And we think maybe these additions are better for soil health and testing of soil health and doing so they can do a better job as we move forward. But we certainly, are interested in DEC's feelings about this and yours and the commissioner particularly. And so I guess I'll turn it over to you and you can give us your take on the differences between what's been added. The residue bill is basically the same thing that we passed out of committee last year, with the exception of the additions that Carrie from the agency has added. So I'll turn it over to you and you give us your opinion, and then we'll have questions.
Great. Well, thank you for that excellent summary, Senator Starr, and good morning. For the record, I'm Kathy Jameson. I'm the Solid Waste Program Manager at DEC. And the Solid Waste Program oversees a variety of solid waste issues. Senator Parent and I have met several times in the Senate Natural Resources Committee. We have the oversight of all the solid waste facilities in Vermont, the landfill, the transfer stations, drop-offs, recycling facilities, as well as composting and the implementation of the solid waste plans, the universal recycling law, and other EPR laws. So dealing with on-farm composting was only a small part of what the solid waste program had oversight of. And we're here today to talk about what I refer to as S265, but I don't think I should be calling that anymore. So it's the bill that was last year. And so, so there's kind of been a whole evolution on our approach to managing these materials. And at this now, I can tell you that DEC is supportive and okay with the bill moving forward, that was similar to S265 of last year, where the Agency of Ag would have oversight of certain on-farm composting activities, and those activities would then be exempt from the solid waste management rules. We are at the same time working collaboratively with the Agency of Ag on their new proposal that would have them be given broader oversight of a variety of soil amendments and have the resources to implement a soil amendment program that would include composting on farms, as well as you have heard from Carrie Jaguar, a variety of different materials that would be used on farms. We have met virtually, because everyone meets virtually nowadays, with Agency on their proposal. Late last week, we gave them some suggested language and some amendments to that. And we look forward to continuing to work on that portion of the bill. But I anticipate that we can get to a point where we can support it. But to be clear, we do support the portion, I call it the black portion and the red portion, because when you saw Carrie's version last week, the black text was S265 of last year, and the red text is the new language for the Agency of Ag's proposal. So we support, the black portion, the existing 265, old 265 language. And we're working with Ag on the new proposal, the red text.
So you haven't worked out all the, I don't know if there are differences, but all the wording in the red section yet.
I think we're close to that. Like I said, we provided them language late last week. Yesterday was a holiday, so we haven't seen a new draft yet.
Yeah, and we haven't either. Well, it sounds like everybody's working well together, which is very, very good. And I guess what we'll do is have to wait until Carrie comes back, and it might be good if you two could come together. We'll try to schedule it so we'll have you both together, and then we can kind of zip through the changes and move the bill along. Chris has a question.
Sure.
Hi, Kathy, nice to see you again. I'm delighted to hear this movement and as the chair said, cooperation between the agencies is very heartening to hear. Do you think that the red language, as you called it, the AGS sort of proposal, is that make the policy stronger overall? I mean, is that it seems to me like that closes a few little loopholes that we've had in terms of chemicals on farmland and other things that we ought to be concerned about. But I'm just curious from your point of view, assuming everybody can hash out some of those details, does that make the proposal even stronger?
Yeah, I think it does two things. One, it provides a more comprehensive approach to how we're managing soil amendments. So that's important. It also provides the Agency of Ag with resources in order to do that work. So if we looked at just 265 from last year, that didn't give them any resources. So it would have been hard for them to do a job of that. And I think by having the additional resources, they can do a good job with the oversight of not only 265, but the additional work that would be with a comprehensive program.
Well, thank you. That's quite a breakthrough, and I'm glad to hear it.
Brian, Senator Colmore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kathy, I don't want to put words in your mouth, and I'm not asking you to, I'm trying not to put you on the spot, but I'm looking ahead. This was Senator Polina's reporting of the bill last year. How would you characterize the changes that Carrie had asked for in terms of it being major changes to what is currently in place? What I'm trying to get is a sense of what sort of pushback we might get on the floor. In other words, the bill that we had last year, we were able to get through the floor. Well, we got it out of committee. To be fair,
Never made it.
So let me rephrase it then, Kathy. Assuming that the committee vote was still 5-0 and it went to the floor, would this amendment substantially change what was in place last year and possibly make it a little bit more complicated? And I realize I'm asking you to, but that's what I'm worried about.
Right. Last year, I think, unfortunately, the pandemic hit, And we then had to go to remote session and the priorities changed. And I think it never made it to the floor is my recollection.
Right.
I can't really comment on the extent of the changes in the red text portion of the bill because I'm not an expert in how the current program works with the Agency of Ag. I think that would be a great question for Carrie. I mean, the benefit, I mean, there's pros and cons with every proposal. And the pro with adding the red text language to this bill is it will provide the Agency of Ag with the resources they will need to do the work you're asking them to do. Is it going to be additional work? Yes, but then we have a better, stronger program. So I think, that's what you're trying. I'm not going to make the decision for you, but I think those are the pros and cons you need to weigh.
Yeah, Chris?
So building on Senator Collimore's question, is it fair to in your opinion to describe the changes that Carrie's proposing as making it so that the state has a handle on more of what's going on? I mean, it's been described to us as sort of an area that is without much oversight. And so, when I think, as Senator Collimore says, when we're on the floor, do you think it's accurate for us to say we're tightening up a little bit here? We've got these plastics, there might be PFOA. We don't have anybody with clear jurisdictional oversight, or to the extent that the Agency of Ag does have oversight, they don't have the resources to utilize it. And so we would like to ask our Senate colleagues to vote for this because it is tightening up the chemicals and other compounds that are or the oversight of chemicals getting onto our fields. Is that accurate? Is that a fair statement in your mind?
Yeah, again, this is probably better responded to by the Agency of Ag as far as how would they implement once they get the authority to do that. I think there are some areas that Carrie described where they don't have a lot of oversight of right now, and it would provide them with that oversight. Of the materials they currently have oversight of, I don't know if it provides more. That would be a good question for Carrie. So I know, and I'm kind of probably going to be dangerous here, but fertilizers. I know when a fertilizer states it provides a certain nutrient component, Agency of Ag currently has oversight of that. I don't know if it changes that part of it. You'd have to ask Carrie that.
Well, I think the important thing is we've all read in the past year or so, the state of Maine and some other states have run into trouble with what's spread on fields, and it gets pushed through the growing items and then into the cow's stomach, and it shows up in the milk. And we certainly want to be ahead of that situation here in Vermont. And as I said last week, I think we aren't making any more land, and so what land we have is very important to keep healthy and strong and free of bad chemicals. And I see this change as a way to help prevent these other bad things from happening. And so far, we haven't had, I guess, any of these problems, but we know that it's, what Maine has will be here if we keep doing the same thing they're doing. And which leads me to a question that I asked last week, but no, we didn't get any answer, was if we took municipal uh, waste that, that goes through the system, and then it sits in like a little pond and dries out, and they clean the bottom out. And a lot of municipalities use that on farmers' fields, or some do. If that was, or they take it to the landfill. Well, going to the landfill, it isn't doing anybody any good, but yet they're lined so that hopefully those chemicals don't escape. But the question I have is, we have about 14, I believe it's 14 digesters scattered around the state of Vermont and on farms. If you took that waste from the municipalities, ran it through the digester on farms, would that purify any of that, so that we wouldn't have to take it to the landfills, and yet we would maybe get some nutrient value from it going through the digester, and then being made into products that can be spread back on the fields. Do
So
you
if I
know?
understand, sorry,
Go ahead, Kathy.
if I understand your question correctly, your question is, could we take biosolids, wastewater treatment sludge from municipal treatment plants and bring them to on-farm digesters for further processing? If your question is related to PFAS and other chemicals of concern, the digester is not going to treat the PFAS. The temperature needed to break down that really strong carbon fluoride bond is in the thousands of degrees Fahrenheit. And a digester only gets to about maybe 150 degrees Fahrenheit. So you're not going to achieve the temperature to destroy these chemicals of concern, unfortunately. Only really extremely high incineration would do that.
So that doesn't help with that situation then. So I guess we'd better figure out a different way to deal with heavy metals and things like that go through the solid waste procedures to try to keep that off from farmers' fields.
Right. With respect to the metals, I think we have really good oversight of that currently in the solid waste rules, with the testing that goes on with the biosolids prior to land application and the regulation of the sites themselves. But the chemicals of concerns are a different nut. They're a different challenge for sure. And our challenge with respect to biosolids, we don't have many options. It's either treatment with land application or landfilling or incineration, and the incineration options aren't close by. So very limited options. And the landfills can only take a certain amount of biosolids because of their own too much liquid in the landfill. Even pressed out biosolids, when it's 20% solids, that means it's 80% water. So.
Yeah. Well, that's what caused Maine's problems, is they were taking things from these waste disposal systems and that's spreading in farmers' field. It caught up with them, and that they've actually banned the use of that land, for feed and stuff. So. Yeah, that's, and you probably read about that and know about it.
Right. My understanding is that there was an industrial source associated with that in Maine.
Yeah.
It wasn't just domestic wastewater. But, chemicals of concern, we do have a lot of them in many of the products that we own and touch and have in our homes. We did a study, I had a study done on the materials going to the landfill. And we thought ahead of time that maybe the biggest source of PFAS in the landfill might be the biosolids. It's not. It's all these things coming from homes. The largest source of PFAS going to the landfill is used clothing, carpeting, and what we call bulky goods, couches and whatnot. So that was eye-opening that domestic products that we're using in our homes is a major contributor of PFAS in the landfill.
I'll be darned. Yeah, and you don't even think about, taking an old couch to the landfill. That's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
And other questions for Kathy? No? And so you said that Carrie has all of your suggestive changes.
Yes.
And we got a kind of a messed up week a little bit this week with college elections and the Housing and Conservation Coalition coming Thursdays. But if we can and have the time, I think it's important to, once we get this bill so that you folks in ag agree on the wording, and we agree with both of you, to move it forward, because it's gonna have to go to natural resources and also finance, because there's fees in there, and
Right.
maybe even over to appropriations, because of course we're spending money. And we'd really like to get that done this year. So we need to meet that crossover deadline that's coming the week after town meeting week. So if we can get that language back from ag and it's corrected, hopefully they'll send you a new copy so you can track it and make sure that, and if it doesn't line up, Kathy, would you please get hold of Carrie and say, hey, look, on line such and such, you didn't pick that up, so that when we get down to one of the other committees, you folks and ag can go in together and
Right.
support the movement of it.
Mhm.
Does that sound like a little mini plan?
Yes.
Yeah. If there are no other questions for Kathy, you're welcome to stay on. We have Caroline Gordon on the line to talk somewhat about this bill. And if you'd like to stay, you're more than welcome. But if you've got things you need to do and have to go, thank you very much for being with us. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. And yes, I'll stay on to hear if the discussion is about this bill. And then when you move on to other topics, I'll probably leave. But it's good to see you, Caroline. I wish we could see everyone in person, but that's not happening right now. So thank you.
Yeah, and we all fit well in our little room.
Yeah. This room's bigger than the one you had in the State House. Wouldn't take much.
That's true. Good morning, Caroline, and welcome to the committee. And as you know, the bill we're talking about is food residuals. And if you'd like to, I think you know everybody, Corey, and certainly the rest of us. So welcome, and I'll be glad to hear from you.
Yeah, good morning, dear committee. For the record, Caroline Gordon, Legislative Director of Small Advocacy Organization Rural Vermont. Good to see you, Kathy. I also miss the in-person occasions in the State House, but I think we're all coping pretty well with the online format so far. Yeah, to the proposed amendment, I have to say that, of course, first of all, we're excited to see the amendment after it's been announced basically for almost a year. It's exciting to see what Carrie Giguere had in mind all that time. Also have to acknowledge we've just received the language for the first time at the end of last week. So we invited Carrie Giguere to meet with the Poultry Farmers for Compost Foraging and I on Thursday afternoon to have have him directly answer lingering questions to that amendment directly to the constituents I represent here, and you know, then we'll see how it's received after we had that opportunity. But my first impression, I had a meeting last Thursday evening with the poultry farmers when we already had a glimpse on the language, and the first response basically from the group was that there's a general appreciation in what the agency is trying to achieve with this language. Of course, we see that there, you know, anything we want to achieve with this bill also needs to be mirrored with the capacity necessary for the agencies to do so. So we want to acknowledge that as well. The concern we really have is, and you guys expressed that already. We share your concern basically that the question is, would such a comprehensive amendment derail our bill or not? Can we hold on to our goal of shepherding this through in this year or not with such a comprehensive, complex language? Given the committees that this would additionally have to go through, and yeah, and there we're not sure. I think your expertise is greater than ours on that end. We're also just wondering if it's really necessary to have everything in the same bill. You all discussed previously, is it maybe an alternative strategy to have sister bills on the issue? I don't really see why not, given that these bills would not be conflicting but intersecting. So that's just still an open question for us. We appreciate also the intent of the agency to tackle other lingering critical issues with the amendment. I think this is, you know, that's also has to be seen positively. And yeah, and first and foremost, of course, the agency's support for moving this, the chicken bill ahead is and will be essential. So it's good to hear, Kathy, you reaffirming the support for the previous language that we already had passed out of committee. So yeah, and then what I have to bring back to attention to the committee basically is the fact that currently the Poultry Farmers for Compost Foraging are granted an extension from ANR, from law enforcement, from having them to acquire solid waste permits only until June 15th of this year. So there's basically real time pressure currently in terms of getting it also done this year, having that be our goal. Shall we not be able to achieve that goal, we would have to, at least as a fallback position, we'd have to extend that deadline yet again, and it will be not the first attempt to push that out.
Yeah.
I think
Chris?
that's what I have for you so far.
Yeah, Chris has a question or statement.
Yeah. Thank you, Carolyn. I share, as you've noted, we all share those concerns. I would say, for me, the strategy maybe makes sense to try to advance the full package.
Yeah.
Actually put that through the Senate floor, which we've not done on either piece. And then keep a very close eye on just how bogged down it gets, because there will be other bills And I would say I can't speak for the committee, but for me, I could see us taking out the language that relates to diversifying compost and chicken particular, and add that to another bill if we find this bigger package gets bogged down. The advantage, as I see it, of the bigger package, as you well know, is that it has the potential to, while it may make a few more stops, may have Kathy and it may have A&R and Ag in the room together saying yes. And that's a big difference. So I think we all share your concern just on this strategy. That's where what I think makes sense. I could be talked out of it, but just want to remind you that we always have that option to decide to advance just a more narrow bill. And that becomes a lot easier when if we were in that case having to go to the floor and say, Senators, you already supported part of this bill a while ago. This is stripped down. Please do it again. That happens all the time towards the end session, and actually would be easier if we pushed the full package through the first time.
I think, personally, I think Chris is right on that. And, I've been leaning toward putting this all together in one package. We do have people on finance so that it can be explained well in there. We have people over in approach, so those fees could be certainly explained easily over there. I was sort of anticipating Anthony to be the reporter, so that would put, two people in every one of those. What about natural resources? Are you still there, Corey?
No, that's a morning committee.
So you'd have to go back and see if they would give you an honorary seat in there, right, to promote it.
Yeah, I think Senator Pearson might have better luck with that than I would.
Yeah, I would expect. But I really think that, we're doing something. Yes, it's beyond where we were, but, environmentally, it makes sense that we ought to be checking these other contaminants and nutrients in our soils, like we do when we go test, for manure applications and all that. It makes sense to do this to protect our soils and our lands into the future. And, I think this is a package that Natural Resources should be real happy with. So I think Anthony had his hand up.
Yeah, I just have a couple things. I think that, first of all, if I was going to report this bill, the full package, somebody would have to explain to me in plain English what those extra red pages actually said and do. Because it added like 15 pages to the bill, which gives people a lot to pick at, I think.
You'd report it as the red pages, right?
No, I reported the black pages. And there's part of me thinks that by adding that stuff to it, there's always going to be, as you know, there's been conflict in the Natural Resources Committee about giving more oversight to the Ag Department, Ag Agency. And I could see them really wanting to pick away at this proposal, the red language, because we're saying it's good because it puts things under the Ag Agency, and that's a good thing to do. I think there are people who are going to think that's not such a good thing to do, at least long enough to like really muck it up and make it and slow it down. So I mean, I feel differently than you do, Senator Starr and Senator Pearson. I'm not opposed to the idea of putting it all together, but I think it's going to basically change the whole conversation about the bill is going to go to the red pages, and the fact that we're doing farmers poultry composting is not even going to be part of the discussion. Once it leaves our committee, it's going to be all about the other stuff, and I don't feel confident in the other stuff necessarily.
Yeah,
I don't mean
Chris?
to throw cold water on things, but just where I'm at right now.
Just to respond to that, we haven't exactly been wildly successful with just the black language, if that's what we're going to call it. So I think we should be grounded there. But maybe a question for Kathy, if she's still with us. Hi, Kathy. This is kind of what Senator Polina said is at the root of my question to you earlier. Is I think if this package allows us to go to the Natural Resource Committee and elsewhere and say, this gives the state oversight over things that we are not dealing with today. It's not really, I mean, it is a shift. And this is what I want to understand. Like, in practice, nobody deals with the plastics on farmland, right?
What are you referring to when you say the plastics on farmland?
The big bale wrappers, the black sheets that
Ag does.
Right. Is that part of this bill?
yeah, because this is well, okay, so we have to better understand it, but that is my understanding. Carrie has said that over and over. I mean, this is
Okay.
what I'm trying to get at. I believe
Mhm.
that the added language here is not so much a shift of authority between agencies, but rather a clarification that somebody has this authority and
Mhm.
therefore offers better environmental protections around chemical pollution, et cetera, and
Mhm.
soil amendments more broadly. So that's a central question, though, that we need to work with O'Grady on, but have a real clear understanding, because if that's not the case, then we ought to have our eyes wide open about it.
So
So
was
I
there a
believe,
question?
Well,
believe
I mean,
Ag takes care of the marshmallow wraps and the bunker silo wraps. They're supposed to have a plan for farmers to deal with that, and they're I thought somebody reported they're working on some type of a wash, plastic wash system so that plastic can get recycled rather than having to put it in a landfill. And but we can follow up on the big plastic issue. Kathy, do you have something you wanted to add?
Right. You are right when that we call it film plastic, that plastic that is used to wrap bales and whatnot. When that gets dirty, contaminated, it is challenging to find a market for recycling. Generally, our other film plastic that's cleaner, that goes to making things like plastic lumber, like Trex and whatnot. It would be great if there was a better valuable market for the ag film plastic. Agency Bag has been working on that for years as far as trying to find a good home for it. It's just, when you're dealing with markets and manufacturing of other products, we don't have a lot of control over that end of it. And, you're competing with cheaper, cleaner material. And, so that's where recycling it gets to be challenging.
You take like all the wrap that comes off from lumber at lumber yards, that's pretty clean wrap, and it's easy to have a market for, well, I assume it is, but that stuff that comes off bunker silos and round bales, they're trying to figure out a way to get that washed cleaner so that they'll take that and mix it in with their other plastics. Chris?
well, so I don't feel like I'm getting clarity. It is, if we pass the package, are we able to say, I'm sorry? Kathy?
I apologize. I went off on a tangent.
Okay. If we pass the package, are we able to say to our colleagues, this is not just a change of agencies, but this allows us more oversight over chemicals and plastics and things that are going into our soils today.
Yeah, I think that is a fair statement. And I like the way you said more oversight instead of saying, it's black or white or on or off. I think the Agency of Ag has some oversight of some of those things right now, but this would be more comprehensive oversight over the whole package.
Yeah. Other questions for Caroline? So I guess we really need to see the proposed changes in that update, and you need it, Caroline, as well, to take back to your people, and Kathy needs to look it over to make sure that it's like, what they're suggesting from DEC. Are there other issues that we on this subject that we need to ask Caroline about? Do you have environmental people that belong to rural Vermont and not just farmers that you could talk to, Caroline, to see if they would support this as we move it forward?
Yes, we're also working with VPERC and Conservation Law Foundation on reflecting more general on the implementation of the universal recycling law, and are actually requesting the natural resources committees to pursue a legislative review of the organics management hierarchy more generally, because we feel the way it's implemented now, it's basically going around the inherent values of the management hierarchy. So yes, we could contact these coalition partners who two great environmentally focused organizations that could look at the revised language and see, and we could see if they are in support of this too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that would be helpful if they would come in. I don't know if we need them in our room, but if they would certainly go in natural resources and support what we're doing, and it might even be good for us to have them in. But if we're going to get this thing out so that it can make crossover, we don't want to hold it up too long in our room, and they would probably feel more comfortable testifying in front of natural resources, where they spend a lot of time than in our room. So that would be good if you could chat with them, and hopefully Carrie will get that redraft over to Michael and O'Grady, and he can maybe get it ready for us to deal with. Well, it should be either tomorrow or Thursday. I got Friday morning sort of open right at first, because I didn't know if we got dragged along, we could deal with it Friday morning. And so I kind of left that open a little bit, as you notice, before the, we've got Friday morning. Maybe that would be a good clean time to come back to this and see if, I'd like to do it though a little bit ahead of Friday, and then Friday do a total review and try to get it kicked out, voted out. So we'll try to do it Thursday if we have any time at all. Is that do you know what your time schedule is, Kathy? If you could make it for Thursday?
Yeah, I could do either Thursday or Friday, or both, whatever you need. It's
Yeah.
your committee, so yeah, because I have things in the afternoon, but the morning looks open, so.
Yeah, good. And we'll try to coordinate with Carrie and Michael Grady. So
Right.
we'll all be on the same page when we run through it.
Right, and just to be clear, we are supportive of the language that was in S-265. We are not agreeing to any new proposal by rural Vermont to change the universal recycling law because we haven't really seen any of that. And I think that would further complicate this bill.
Yeah.
I would advocate for that to be a separate item.
Well,
Yeah.
we're
No,
pretty,
just to clarify, there's no further legislative ask related to the universal recycling law at this time.
Good.
A legislative
Okay.
review wouldn't be a bill. Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you.
and we're pretty much on that same page. So I think we're all in agreement that that we're going to hang with our language that we have. And I think we did well last year putting that all together. It kind of made good sense, and everybody was sort of on the same page with it. And so, no, I don't anticipate that being changed. It's the red language we've got to get squared away between now and hopefully by the end of the week.
Mhm.
So if
And
Caroline,
if I can just make a final comment from my side. So this all works well for us. I think if you guys meet on Thursday, then we will also be able to see the revised amendment before our afternoon meeting with Carrie and the poultry farmers. So that'll work well. And then I just wanted, since I see you all now, take the opportunity to invite you all once more personally to our meet and greet that Rural Vermont is organizing with NOFA Vermont next Wednesday at 10:30. I'm sending the link to our events homepage in the chat. This would be an opportunity. You remember we always did small farm action days in the State House, and since we're not in the State House anymore, we're organizing a virtual event so that farmers still have the opportunity to speak up on issues that lie aside from the campaigns we already have. This is basically a forum for farmers to meet with legislators and just voice concerns, even though it's not official testimony time. So if a couple of you are able to make the event and maybe schedule some time into your next Wednesday's schedule to participate, that would be very much appreciated. Thank you all. And thank you all for your continuous leadership on this important issue. Also much appreciated.
yeah, thank you, Caroline, and thank you, Kathy, for hanging in there with us. And we'll hopefully see you later in the week.
Yes, looking
No
forward to
further
it.
questions from anyone? Yeah, so thank you again. And we have farm labor housing. We have coming up. I got it scheduled for 11:30. Maybe we could chat in general for a minute about the bill. Maybe if Anthony's feeling a little bit skittish on the entire report for the chicken bill, we could have, we could switch and do two reporters. If that would make it better for Anthony, and if somebody else feels comfortable doing the red language, we just do two reporters. Chris?
I don't mind doing that if people think it helps, maybe with the Senate Natural. But I'm open to that if I can help.
Well, I think that would work better because you have a good rapport or a better rapport than some of us have down the hall. And you've been in on certainly all the discussions in regards to the red language. So would that be better, do you think, Anthony? Would that help you out?
Sure, I think so. I mean, I feel uncertain about the red language. That's the thing. And I feel like I can't, if I don't have confidence in what I'm talking about, it's gonna make it harder to sell it on the floor.
Yeah, it's
If I don't
pretty
believe
hard
in myself.
pretty hard to sell something you know that you don't know anything about.
Right.
No, and I think that'll be fine. That'll be good. Brian?
Thanks, Bobby. I have to still admit, I feel like Senator Polina to some degree, although if the rest of the committee is willing to sort of take the plunge here, I guess I will too. As you have pointed out in the past, Mr. Chair, if you can get appropriations, finance, and our committee, I think that adds up to 18 votes. And if everybody in those three committees is fine with it, that's really all we need. I'll be very interested, though, to see what the end result of having the ag and the natural resources folks come together and the language that they come up with. I mean, maybe it won't be as, to me, the red language was pretty stark in places. I mean, it really got away from an agricultural type of bill, and I think was more of a natural resources bill, and that's what kind of originally made me think, ooh, this might not be a great floor sell. But as I said, if the rest of the committee is willing to do it, I certainly will join in.
Yeah, Chris?
Let me just say, since I've been sort of advocating for this, I don't have clarity in my own mind yet about what the language that Carrie proposes does. I've been focused on the idea that it is a strategy to bring the agencies together. But I think we need to be comfortable with the specifics. For me, the prospect of the two agencies coming together in this room and down the hall in Senate Natural and saying, yes, this is the right approach is worth a lot. But the details, we all have, I would say I need to be more comfortable and better understand the details. And that's where Michael and to some degree, Carrie will be very helpful, I think.
Well, I think O'Grady, he understands this frontwards and backwards, I think. He worked in natural for, he still does. He's worked there for a long time, very knowledgeable of the issue. And I think, he'll bring clarity in his explanation because we haven't really gone through it with him. And he has a way of explaining things to us, I think, that's pretty clear. And but I understand. I've read it a couple of times, and yeah, it's a little bit screwy, the language maybe to understand, but I do understand certainly the importance of protecting our agricultural, all of our lands really, to make sure that on our watch, they aren't getting contaminated and sitting idle because future generations are going to need that land to feed themselves with. And on our watch, we need to make sure that when we pass it on to the next crew, that it's wholesome and pure and can continue to grow wonderful crops. So, Anthony?
Yeah, I think part of what's bugging me a little bit about this has been that we got A&R and agriculture to agree on the chicken poultry piece, and she said again today that they support the Black language as it is, and I kind of feel like we made progress in getting them to come together on that. And now all of a sudden, the ag department comes in with this whole other slew of pages, another 17 pages that they have to kind of reconcile and get together and figure out whether they support it or not. And it kind of bugs me that we made a lot of progress on the core of what we're trying to do, and then we're about to like all agree on it, and they come in with like a whole nother bill basically that they want to attach to it. So there's a part of me that probably is on a gut level reacting to that. I just kind of feel like we've made progress, and now we're being slowed down and potentially getting into debates with the Natural Resources Committee as well as the Finance Committee, which I think Finance and Appropriations will be fine. I think it's the Natural Resources Committee that'll be a problem. And so it just bothers me a little bit that we're put in that position when we were ready to go on what we really wanted to do.
I think it's worth remembering that the ag agency didn't love the bill, though.
Right.
We love the bill.
Yeah.
A&R didn't love it. Ag didn't love it. Senate Natural Resources then got this, and I mean, I still think we could have muscled it through our
Right.
side, but anyway, I share the concern, and I am devoted to keeping the eye on the prize of helping these chicken farmers. I mean, that is,
Yeah.
I think we're probably unified on that.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
now it's tricky.
Well, it's always tricky. Doesn't matter what you're doing. You want to know the rules of the game and be ready for anything. And but I really feel good. I don't have any problems pushing it forward. I think that overall it makes sense that we're keeping our eye on the environment and on soils, and ag is, they have people on these farms constantly. We've got we and A&R have a brand new lab where we can test for all these different things, and we ought to be utilizing it. So anyways, we've got 20 minutes. Are there any other issues that you want to bring up to chat about? Linda, do we have other bills that are waiting for us to work on?
No, you have the two committee bills.
Yeah. And I keep thinking there's one more ag bill coming, but nothing has shown up yet. So I don't know where it is. Chris?
The right to repair for farm equipment bill went to economic development.
Yeah.
So I don't know, our schedule's getting pretty crowded, but I continue to hope we could have a hearing or two on that and get some stories out of the farm community. It would require either a referral or just us looking into it a little bit.
Well, I guess rightfully it should have gone to there, but Michael's plate is running over, with all the housing issues and all of that. If we were in Montpelier, I'd say to Michael, why don't you send that bill over to us, and we'll do the preliminary work on it, and try to get it ready for passage to some degree and ship it back to you. But of course, we never get to see each other in person. But maybe,
Well,
maybe you could ask him, Chris, if, if that would be something that he would be amenable to.
I'm sure he would. He co-sponsored and he said, I hope it doesn't come to my committee.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
they're busier than heck, you know, and
yeah, I'll ask him to do that little rule suspension and ship it to us. If you're open to that, I'd be grateful.
well, you know, from comments that we picked up from different farmers, especially the bigger guys that do their own repair work, you know, I think it's getting harder, but if we had a little hearing and had them invited in, they would tell us whether that's a real serious issue or not. And you know, we can take an hour of our time, I think, to pursue that.
That'd be great.
Anthony?
Yeah, I support that bill as well. I think it would be good if we brought it in. I'm just wondering, the way the bill is structured, theoretically, it wouldn't have to go through any other committees, would it? If a committee of jurisdiction supported it, it doesn't have funding or anything, does it?
That's
No.
correct. It does. It probably would go back to economic development because it
Yeah.
really is an onus on the manufacturers.
Right.
But even that's not clear to me.
Mm.
No, so we can pursue that issue there.
I wonder if we, last year or last session, I guess it was last year, we talked about the Pesticide Advisory Council. And the stuff that came out recently, the study that was done that showed that basically the cover cropping has resulted in greater use of atrazine and glyphosate. Those are things we were supposed to be cutting down on. And in fact, they went up quite a bit. And the role of the Pesticide Advisory Council is to oversee the decrease in the use of chemicals. So I don't know what we do about that in the short term, but I think it's worth having a conversation with some people about. I mean, because we're talking about keeping the land clean and good for future generations. I mean, this increased use of glyphosate and atrazine is not a good sign.
Well, we haven't had, was it Laura that looks after that, or Carrie?
I think Carrie would be the closest, I think.
Well, I mean, I read those same reports that you mentioned, Anthony, and I thought we'd been told that the use of atrazine was way down and
Right.
Roundup and that kind of, but that report, I think we should hear from Carrie in regards to that article that we were sent and find out, well, are they, you know, find out what the hell they say about it, you know,
Right.
at the agency, because they're supposedly working in the direction of, you know, GMO seeds are supposed to help and all these things were supposed to help. And in that report said we're going in the wrong direction for some reason.
Yeah. And I think that the fellow who did this report, or the main person who did the report, I could be mistaken, but I think he came in to see us once before, a year or more ago, about something similar.
Yeah,
He
it's
used to
that
work at the
guy
ag
from-
department.
He's from your district.
Well, then he must be credible.
Well, I don't know if I'd go 100% in that direction, but he certainly has a lot of experience in that. But it's how you translate the numbers. I'm sure, you know, you can work numbers any way you want to make them work in your favor or against you. And
Yeah.
it would be good to hear it from Carrie, and then, you know, maybe we can have your constituent in and, but I'd like to do that after crossover, not tie up a morning prior to that.
Sure.
Anything else that, Chris?
Well, just in terms of crossover, what are you picking up in chairs meeting? Are we likely to have a kind of standard session, or is anyone talking about anything strange like last year so we can react to federal money and all that? What are we picking up?
Not yet. We haven't, just talked about like a regular session and thinking that everything will be moving along, but they keep talking in Washington about another stimulus bill. So I don't really know what to tell you other than I bet we won't adjourn until next January when we get done. I was kind of hoping and thinking that it would be wise to save, instead of going to May, whatever it is we usually go to, try to get done in April and save a couple of weeks to come back and in case something does happen, to come back and deal with it, at all of us, not just the Joint Fiscal Committee, because, letting them do all the wheeling and dealing, it's fine, but there's only what, 6 or 8 of them that's deciding what 180 of us usually decide, and that's okay in a pinch. It's okay for a little bit, but I don't think that's the standard way that we should deal with that. When you start talking big money, I think we should all be sitting at the table, and because we're limited on what we can tell our constituents if you aren't there. And that's what the legislature's all about, is to keep people informed and not, just have the governor doing all the decisions or a few of us.
So Bobby, what date? I've heard March 12th would be crossover date. Is that?
Yeah, that would be, see, town meeting's the very first week of March.
Yep.
So I've got a calendar right here.
Yeah,
So we would come back the
Okay.
5th.
Yeah, or the 9th, yeah.
Yes, and that town meeting would be the 2nd, and that following week is the week of the 8th through the 12th. And I think it would have to be done by the 12th, the regular bill. But if our bill, that chicken bill, happened to end up in approach or in finance, they have an extra week usually. So we should be fine.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. So, keep your ears open on the adjournment stuff. And I don't know, what do you guys think about the way don't you think that we should be somewhat involved if there's a lot of money coming?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, you'll have a chance to weigh in, and
Sure, we're gonna have to be, Bobby, because the feds will put probably different strings on stuff, and we'll have to redesign programs. I mean, I don't see a group of 6 or 8 being able to rewrite rules and doing all that in an effective manner.
Yeah, it should be all of us. I mean, sometimes we do things in appropriations to hurry things along, but it isn't without us having a lot of chat in that room about circumventing the rest of the members and making sure that as many as we can are informed about what the heck we're doing. Jane is, she's really good about making sure that, that we're all in sync with what's happening. Anything else? If not, we'll go ahead, Chris.
I was just gonna say, can we have a little break?
Yeah, we'll take a little, 10, 15 minutes, try to get on at 5 after so we can give Buster and Dan Baker a shot at what on farm labor housing.
11:25 then?
Yeah, that sounds good. So
Okay.
we'll see y'all in a few minutes.